Wow, it's
a new video.
How's it going, guys? My name is
Puueds, and
in this video I'm gonna be making
a retrospective on audiovisual sampling creator contest. Wait, whose new video is this? Oh, hey, it's Puueds.
If you make levels in Geometry Dash, you've definitely thought of finding inspiration from other levels. I sure have with Woogie and Spectra in 2016-ish to Mel's F-Dot and Knots now. But have you thought of straight up taking what they made and putting it in your level? Sampling in Geometry Dash isn't really a big thing in creating levels, and when it is, it's usually thought of as stealing or odd at the very least. To be on the receiving end of someone taking your work, putting it in theirs, and noticing it can feel kinda weird. If you want to have a tree object in your level, you should really go make it yourself rather than use someone else's.
But it takes like 30 years for a tree to grow.
When you look at sampling in, say, the music industry, it's considered alright, or even pretty cool to do. A lot of people would say if used right, it can help elevate the song and give it more depth, which made people wonder, can we apply the same logic in Geometry Dash? Short answer, yeah. Long answer, yeah. But with permission if you want to get the level rated and you're ready to get questions on why you did it. Medium answer?
Yeah, but with permission.
And this is where Audiovisual Sampling Creator Contest comes in, with an entire spreadsheet of creators allowing anyone to use assets from their levels that, as long as it was for the contest,
oh look, there's me.
People could actually sample with that sort of scrutiny and actually explore how sampling can help elevate Geometry Dash levels. And people made some hella cool stuff, so why not check that out? Okay, I'll get to you eventually. So, where do we begin?
I guess we just start with the spreadsheet of entries.
There are about 100 entries for the contest, and I played through all of them. From the best, to the underrated, and to what I assume is their first level, to Skeletal But Milk 2. Only Skeleton, Milk, and Slime Step enjoyers will understand this level. Thanks to AudioVisual for letting me use his spreadsheet for all the entries. I'm gonna cover groups of similar levels and a few highlights rather than talking about every level individually, since I think I'd be here all day. The contest ran for 4 months from May 5th to August 17th, with that end date having a huge asterisk to it, which I'll get to later. But for now, what kind of level should we start with first? Well, other than giving levels more depth, what if we just went the other way around? What if we made high quality shitpost levels instead? Drugscape by Andy Google is the epitome of this, and it's just really funny. Also, warning, this level is genuinely epileptic. If you have epilepsy, I suggest just listening for the next 30 seconds to a minute. This level is a comedic clusterfuck. All the levels it samples from and the way it's done is so whimsically that I can't help but smile at it all. The skeleton moon from skeletal shenanigans with red circles and arrows to then be Pac-Man consumed by an actual moon, and then... I'm surprised this was rated. Its jokes are amazing as well. There are segments where you have to click 192 times, but it's in counts of 49. I really like the text on the top left corner and how it changes throughout the level. No guys, I didn't cheat to showcase this level. Andy Google really just understood the assignment he gave himself, and I'm so glad that he made it as great as it is.
This is one of the reasons why people advise for playing GD. You can't get epilepsy as accessible as $4 and an in-game search. Why are my eyes red?
Okay, you can look back on the screen now. I think the next level that's awesome but didn't get a mention in the results video is Telecaster G-Boy by It's Sothic. A YouTube poop music video in the form of a Geometry Dash level is actually such a cool idea that I'm surprised that there aren't really any other levels that do this. It's so overwhelming in the best way possible. While it's way easier to just watch it, I played it myself without the song and you can still make it out with the sound effects. I didn't get to mention the contest criteria, but basically to qualify you had to make a level that was easy to easy demon. And this level being auto makes it so that it technically didn't qualify. It would have been awesome though that if it was allowed, it could have had a chance at the top 10. In my opinion, that's how good it was. Other levels that I thought were pretty funny were AudioVisual by Moon Explorer GD, simply because of the end screen art, and AudioVisual Sample CC by Celestial, yes that's the level name, which is the best worst tutorial I could ever ask for. But if you were there when AudioVisual was streaming himself playing all the entries, we could absolutely not forget about this one level that really should have won. This technical masterpiece really showed just how creatively funny you could get with sampling.
I'm talking about Skeletal But Milk 2 by Mr. Hap Bob.
This level, oh my, is so dumb. It qualified for every single criteria other than the fact that it was medium demon. Playing the level without any context is such a piss poor experience. But if you were invested into the contest, the fun of playing it gets substituted by the funny of playing it. To put it simply, you are straight up playing skeletal shenanigans, but everything has been given a probably 20,000 degree rotation across the entire level, along with slime set by Cypher being overlaid on top, to the point where you genuinely can't read what's going on, and a random limeade asset put on a transition to barely qualify for 3 samples, and it makes for one of the most entertaining entries ever. And watching audiovisual play it on stream with everyone was quite the experience. By the way, this level is a sequel, which you can tell by the 2, in which the only differences between the first level and this are the overlaid slime step and the limeade line. Amazing stuff. Outside of some hilarious entries, I think sampling gave everyone an opportunity to try messing around and be more lighthearted. I've been seeing a lot of similar faces and assets and jokes like these in Robcore by Ari.com and many other levels that are on screen right now. Actually, now that I think about it more, there's a lot of entries that center around the internet or just generally more lighthearted themes, which is probably one of the most straightforward themes for sampling. A lot of the top 10 were actually about that theme but done in different ways. It's honestly very unique because I haven't really seen anyone do this theme that often, and it's refreshing to have levels that are more whimsical or cohesively all over the place. Moving on, some of my personal go-tos for playing are actually not many of the winning entries in the top 10. I'll start with an entry that was released pretty early into the contest, that being Alloy by Chris Takai. I have no idea what things are sampled and what are original, but it didn't really matter since I just enjoyed it playing it so much. The name being Alloy is a cute tie with meshing samples and original assets into a new level. Himari by Arsaurus is another level where I had a lot of fun despite some of the flaws it has. It even got made into a weekly demon. It definitely shows that if done right, sampling doesn't really remove your level's chance of being rated and even being praised a lot. These levels are just more like comfort levels to me, just because of their more well-rounded and simpler takes on gameplay and the contest. On the opposite end, there are levels that proudly show exactly who they're sampling from. Finders Keepers by It's Luminous YT starts off as a typical 1.0 layout and then builds up the level with more levels, sort of like getting stuff from a database. Copycat by Vegetam does this really well, where the way it contextualizes its samples and the act of sampling itself is quite meta and pretty funny when you think about it. Like, Vegetam is using samples given with permission to then make a level where an AI gets those samples without permission to then generate a level. Huh. Sample Space by Mr. Cooltrix falls into the same boat for one of its parts, where it takes animals and dragons from other levels and puts them together in uniquely wholesome party contexts. A few people took the contest to make tributes to creators or levels they liked, such as Hall of Memories by Rocky Pikmin, Ultimate Creator Mix by McMiner3244, and especially Sword and Samplery by Sweet Silver. That level is great at being a tribute to Your Read, although a bit too derivative for me, yet it's able to stand on its own as a journey thanks to its sheer variety across its entire length. When looking through these entries, there are a surprising amount of levels that aren't rated that I think should be, like this level showing right now, which is Failed Extract 40 by Quackcalia ZZZ and 4inch. You can also find some unhinged entries like Tired by the Cube Orange 77 where... Okay, there are some parts that are understandable, like, yes, I relate to watching Bocce the Rock in Spanish dub because Crunchyroll doesn't have an English dub, and that this place is out of place but bad as said by Fern, but Freeman would like to disagree. And then there are other parts that are damn near incomprehensible. Like, genuinely, what kind of mind do you need to be able to make stuff like this? Or some completely left field entries. I put up a few levels you can check out here, and I really recommend you do. DN8, Yard, Cat in the Radiator, and I Love My Stolen Designs. For the last 2 levels, just imagine me screaming into the mic because their names are in all caps. I should bring up the fact that I participated in this contest as well with Palace World, which if you're interested in hearing about my process and thoughts of it, stick around. There's a lot of things that make it, in my opinion, really surprising that it placed 7th at all. So Palace World is a level that is essentially based on what would be on the surface in Cave World by 100 Foxes / Comet Face / Overdefo. Since there was only one part in that level dedicated to the surface, and fair enough, it'd be weird if it was called Cave World and you're not in the cave for the majority of it, I thought it was a pretty cool idea to make a pseudo-sequel, unofficial spin-off, or inspired level. Like, Cave World ends with you going up, and Palace World starts with you emerging up out of the ground. I built the entirety of this level within 12 days before the deadline, and I saved a few sketches of what I was planning for before starting to build it. This level is sort of meant to be the culmination of everything I learned in my previous levels like Soar, Swagger, Float, Calm Frenzy, and Before the Square, and a bit of Pulse. And it really shows in the look of the level and the sampling list. Like 30% of my samples are literally from my own levels, and I don't know if any other entries reach that close. The reason why it was 12 days was because I found the song Palace Woo on Spotify really that late. I actually had a different entry in mind where it was going to be using Wow Wow by Neil Ciceriga from Mouth Moods, but I never really built it because it was a nong and I knew I'd be so lazy to find a replacement song. So I kinda just gave up on that entry and went with Palace World instead. The first half was meant to be this abandoned town that somehow still looked inhabited and well kept up, and the second half is the palace. One of the segments I hope people will get is this interior observatory segment. I sampled Congregation's block design, Before the Square's icon ruins, and Planisphere's constellation line art to sell the feeling that there was a culture and community around constellations, like Congregation, cubes, constellations, congregation of cubes around constellations. Do you get it?
As someone who made it, I totally get it.
I grinded this every day, and there were some days where I was on it for 5 hours straight. It kinda shows in the second half of the level and the length. Originally, I think it was supposed to go for another 40 seconds where it would go into a sewer or another cave. When it finally got finished, I remember thinking that it would not even place in like the top 10 or top 20 and only be rated like featured at most. Safe to say, I was really surprised at an epic rating and in the 7th place. So far, it seems like sampling has really enabled people to either add a bit more to their levels or make it the entirety of their level's ideas. What it has also enabled was exploring themes that could only be further accentuated by sampling. Seeing assets from other levels gives a sort of very unique life into these levels where you're playing something that was put together rather than streamlined for your playing experience. It harkens back to the days where collabing was seen as an opportunity to have fun with your style, and it gave a lot more variety, except here it's way more calculated with the object's meaning and place. When it comes to deciding who would place in the contest, what it came down to was the creativity of your sampling as well as your usual fare of good gameplay and decoration. What really separates the great entries from the rest depends on not just the theming but how the samples fit into the level, how exciting it is to see those samples recontextualized, and again, how they further accentuate or add to the level's ideas. My opinions on the top 10 are that pretty much I just agree, and that all the levels are deserving of their place. With the exception of Palace World not being placed at first, no bias of course, I conduct all my videos under rigorous objective scientific research standards. I will say that when making predictions on what would place, I was surprised that We Are Punks by Kyriel got 6th place, and that there were levels like Labels and Cyanotype that I didn't even consider would place, let alone getting 2nd or 1st. But it makes so much sense after watching the winners video and playing it for myself. Huge congrats again to all the winners.
Thank you, Puueds.
This retrospective though would be a bit incomplete if I didn't talk about AudioVisual's Discord server when it came to the contest. There was a dedicated chat to sharing your levels, asking for feedback, and even having conversations. I didn't participate in it that much, but I can assure you that it was pretty active and it was really easy to chat to a lot of the judges and creators who entered. It was a genuinely nice community and it added to the hype of the contest for a lot of people. Funny thing about the contest now, this is probably the best time to bring it up, the contest was supposed to end on August 17th, but it only ended when AudioVisual actually would start streaming himself playing the entries, which was 2 days afterwards. So if you couldn't finish by the deadline, but potentially could as long as you submitted before he streamed, it was still fair game. In my opinion, this was pretty scuffed on an organizational level, and I did see some entries that were submitted after that deadline. So hopefully for the next contest, it doesn't come down to the wire with unannounced, technically extended deadlines. Before we close things off, there's a few more entries that I really wanted to highlight but didn't really qualify and are showing on screen right now. Clockwork by NTB896 is a sick motion design level, but was unfortunately an auto so it didn't really qualify. And Deep Echo by Dangerous Robot probably would have won the entire contest if it wasn't a hard demon. A lot of the judges really liked this level, and I really liked it too. When it comes to the most sampled creators, not surprisingly AudioVisual himself would be there, and was the most sampled because, of course. 100 Foxes, Arclea, IMAX1, Wolsey, Voxycat, Chromal, and Nazgub to name a few were some of the most sampled from as well. As for me, I was sampled in 5 entries in which Swagger was sampled in Samplescape, and Before the Square got sampled in Broadcast, Labels, and Yard. I did see someone sample from Pulse, which I was really surprised by. And then of course there's me sampling from myself. Sampling proved to be a really cool thing to do in Geometry Dash, and we got to see some awesome levels come out of it that wouldn't have been nearly as possible otherwise. When looking through the sample list, it had 387 creators, which is so awesome that AudioVisual reached out to that many people to make this contest happen. It definitely improved the mysterious and somewhat taboo sentiment that sampling had.
That does leave me wondering with a question though. Could sampling actually take off in the creating scene outside of huge organized efforts like this, like a contest, and have like people just make levels on their own just with samples?
Levels such as Umbrella Leviathan's Plunderphonic series with Ivory Star Waltz and Juxtaposed Position prove that it is possible if you're willing to be thorough. There's more levels out there that I don't really know myself, but definitely do know that they exist, and if you know them, leave a comment down below. When you compare sampling to where it came from in music and how it holds up in Geometry Dash, there's stark differences between the two, which are accessibility and reaching out for permission. I'm not a musician, so I'm going to be taking an educated guess at this. When making music, you'll be relying on samples, especially if you start on music production software like FL Studio. Buying instruments costs a lot, and Geometry Dash only costs like $5 in Australia. And when it comes to getting different sounds, you can find snippets of songs online for free. And even before using that software, they figured out how to do sampling with hardware. In Geometry Dash's earlier updates, you had to recreate other people's levels. At the very start, sampling was just not in the cards. Like, do you remember Ultimate Demon Mix by Zobros? Like, you had to painstakingly remake it block by block and trigger by trigger. In 2.0, you could finally copy assets over, and even now when it was more streamlined, it's still a pretty finicky process and you actually need a handbook to help you understand. Like, I have to use copy color, paste color, and build helper to use samples, 3 buttons that are not really intuitive at first and are pretty tedious to do. The attitudes towards sampling in Geometry Dash hinge a lot more on permission, mainly because the community is way smaller and more tight-knit. You're not really asking a famous person. You can reach out to a creator you want to sample from on Discord or Twitter, which is a good barrier to have in my opinion, but a barrier nonetheless. If they don't respond though, you're kinda screwed, which is an issue sampling faces in general, and it's actually quite limiting, which might turn away some people from building the samples in their levels. In the end, I think it can take off, although I'm only expecting to see like 1 level per year that does this. You gotta audit yourself and make sure you get permission from everyone, and the level still has to turn out good and refreshing in the end. Whether anyone wants to take that on is really up to us in both creating them and giving permission. This contest was genuinely awesome, and I hope Audiovisual makes more banging contests that bring up ideas like this so that we can talk about it. Sampling has a place in Geometry Dash, and while it's a lot more inaccessible than other ways of building, it's something worth considering if you want to try it for fun.
I just watched the intro, and whoever made this, I don't think they sourced everything with permission. Hopefully the sources don't find out. Oh, a phone call! Yeah, hello? Oh shit. Apparently they just told me that it's mine, and I think I might be going to court. So before I go to court, I would like to say that I sampled more than half from myself. Majority wins, right? Right? Damn it.